Wake Forest is one of the fastest growing cities in the Triangle region of North Carolina. This once tiny town has blown up over the past decade, bringing with it tons of new housing and commercial options. So let's dive into the pros and the cons of Wake Forest, North Carolina. But first things first, if you're new here, my name is Matt Martin and I'm a Raleigh-based realtor. I've helped tons of clients just like you relocate to the Triangle region of North Carolina. And if you're looking to do the same, I'd love to help you too. So let's start with the basics, like where is Wake Forest? Well, Wake Forest is a suburb of the larger Triangle region, located about 18 miles northeast of downtown Raleigh and about 25 miles due east of downtown Durham. It's no joke, 30 to 35 minutes to get everywhere from Wake Forest. Downtown Raleigh, 30 to 35 minutes. Downtown Durham, 35 minutes. The airport or Research Triangle Park, 30 to 35 minutes. Now, of course, all those are without traffic, and we'll definitely talk about traffic later on. So while Wake Forest isn't super far from anything, it's also not super close to the rest of the Triangle. But unless you need to travel for work, Wake Forest really does have everything you could possibly need within its own city limits. I'll get to all that later in this video too. It's almost entirely located in Wake County, which is home to many of the other Triangle cities you may be familiar with, like Cary, Raleigh, Apex, and Garner. But it does have a tiny little portion that crosses over into Franklin County. In terms of accessibility, Wake Forest has two main feeders: Highway 98, which runs east and west between Durham and Wake Forest, and Highway 1, which is also known as Capitol Boulevard, which runs north and south between Raleigh and Wake Forest. The closest actual freeway to Wake Forest would be I-540, also known as the Outer Beltline, which is about 15 miles to the south. I've made lots of other videos all about the Outer Beltline, which will eventually create a 70-mile loop around Raleigh and is expected to be fully completed by 2028. Now, one big confusion about Wake Forest is that it's not actually home to Wake Forest University, or better yet, it's no longer home to Wake Forest University. While the university did get its start here in 1834, it moved to Winston-Salem back in the 1950s, but it still kept the name. So if you're considering a move to Wake Forest, but you're worried about it being too much of a college town, you can breathe a sigh of relief. Population-wise, Wake Forest recently crossed the 50,000 mark, which is crazy given that it was just sitting around 30,000 people back in 2010. And at the turn of the century, okay, that sounded dramatic. I just mean back in 2000, the population was only 13,000 people. So Wake Forest has seen a four-fold increase in population in the last 24 years. So what do all these people do there? Well, let's jump into some of the growing amenities of Wake Forest. As I just mentioned, Wake Forest really is its own self-contained city with pretty much everything you could want nearby. Of course, you have your big box store options like Target, Lowe's, and Sam's Club. But if you've watched my other videos before, you know I have a maybe unhealthy obsession with Wegmans, which, if you're not familiar, is the mecca of grocery stores, at least in my opinion. And you'll be happy to know that Wake Forest has one of just 4 Wegmans in the Triangle, with the others being in Raleigh, Cary, and Chapel Hill, with a proposed 5th opening in Holly Springs in 2027. I'm not just bringing up Wegmans because I love it though. It's actually the anchor for the 100-acre Grove 98 development in Wake Forest that's going to completely change the landscape at the intersection of Highways 1 and 98. There's 80,000 square feet of retail space with food options like Torchy's Tacos and Cava already signed on. There's a 230 plus unit apartment complex and nearly 400 townhomes and condos by Stanley Martin. It's starting to feel like a mini downtown where you can live, shop, and eat all within walking distance. And speaking of downtowns, Wake Forest's historic downtown along South White Street is one of my favorites in the region. While it's not big, it's loaded with character, from its red brick architecture to the oldest running restaurant in the Raleigh area, Shorty's. Now, I'm no hot dog connoisseur, but these hot dogs were pretty darn good. But if hot dogs aren't your thing, you can head over to Bodega for tapas and wine, or Norse Brewing Company for beer and bites. And there are multiple coffee shops, including the Triangle favorite, Black and White Coffee. Heading just down the street, the Loading Dock is a 300+ member co-working venue that maximizes the character of the once abandoned warehouse it occupies. You can find a similar offering in Raleigh at Dock 1053, which we love to go to. And then there's the upcoming downtown food hall and park, which will include a 20,000 square foot food hall restoring the old Chevrolet building, new residential condos, and a downtown park. And speaking of parks, you can't talk about Wake Forest without highlighting E. Carroll Joyner Park. This 117-acre park is a local favorite, featuring a historic pecan grove, amphitheater, serene gardens, and meticulously restored farm buildings. There's also Friday Night on White, which takes place in downtown Wake Forest on the second Friday night of each month from April through September. This free concert series is a favorite among locals and visitors alike, and features local and regional party bands playing classics from across a ton of different genres. And speaking of music, September brings the Concerts in the Park series to Joyner Park on Sunday evenings. And every Saturday morning, you can head downtown to the Wake Forest Farmers Market. So as you can see, Wake Forest has a ton of amenities and things to do. So what about housing? Well, as of July 2024, the median single-family home price in Wake Forest sits at $586,000 and sells in just about 2 weeks. You can check out my whole video on the Triangle cities from most expensive to least right here. But as compared to the 15 cities that make up Wake County, Wake Forest is the 6th most expensive, with places like Cary, Morrisville, Apex, and Holly Springs coming in higher. Now, the average price per square foot is only $209. So even though the median sales price seems high, you're getting a lot of house for your money in Wake Forest. As I already alluded to, with all the new development popping up around Wake Forest, there are also tons of new housing options, which explains why over 40% of Wake Forest sales so far in 2024 have been new construction. In terms of property taxes, every county has a different schedule for when they reassess home values here, which means they each have a different timeline for also adjusting their tax rates. Wake County just had a major reassessment in 2024, and we actually saw tax rates come down some to account for the significant bump up in assessed values. Wake Forest has a combined city and county property tax rate of just 0.93%, meaning you're looking at an annual tax bill of about $5,400 on that median home price of $586,000. And what's so great about Wake Forest and really the Triangle region overall is that you'll also be able to enjoy the outdoors much of the year due to the region's great weather. Okay, let's just get it out of the way. Yes, Wake Forest has a hot and humid summer, but the worst of it only lasts about 2 months, with July and August being the peak. Outside of that, the annual average high is around 70 degrees and the low is around 50 degrees, which means you spend a lot of time outside here. There's an average of 214 days of sunshine a year, and Wake Forest only averages about 3 inches of snow per year. So if you're moving here from somewhere with a long and brutal winter, you should be just fine to sell your snow shovel. So with a booming population, tons of new amenities, lots of new housing options, reasonable housing prices, and great weather, what are the cons of Wake Forest? Well, one of the biggest cons about Wake Forest goes back to one of the things that I mentioned at the top of the video. With only 2 main feeder highways into Wake Forest and a population boom, traffic can get pretty heavy at times. Now, if you're moving here from LA or New York or Austin, you'd probably laugh. But you will definitely hit stop and go traffic here during rush hour, and sometimes even during off hours. Now, there is a plan to convert Capitol Boulevard into what's called a controlled access highway, which essentially means it would function more like a freeway. So far, only the first segment's timing has been announced, and it's set to start in October of 2025. The other negative is also one I hinted at the top of the video, and that's Wake Forest's somewhat isolation from the rest of the triangle. While that 30 to 35 minute drive time to most places I mentioned earlier may be fine for some people, it may be too far removed for others. I think this one really comes down to personal choice. So, is Wake Forest right for you? Well, the best way to find out is to come and see it for yourself. If you're considering a move to the Triangle region of North Carolina, be it Wake Forest or otherwise, I'd love to be your guide. You can reach me by phone, email, or text, and you can find all my contact information in the link below or by scanning this nifty little QR code right here with your cell phone. And if you like this video, I have a whole library of other videos all about what it's like to move to and live in the Triangle. In fact, there's one right there, so give it a click to keep on watching.